It's still mighty hot, but the weatherman says this is supposed to be the last week of it. And I've got all these plants here that are ready to go in the ground. I've got kale, I've got cauliflower, I've got broccoli, cabbage, collards, all kind of good stuff that needs to go in the ground. And a lot of people always ask us, how do we know when these plants are ready to go in the ground? And I'll show you. It's real simple. When that plant pulls up out of this cell, just like this one right here will, boop, just like that, that is when you know. So when you can come over here and grab this stem and pull it out like that, it's ready to go in the ground. They will pull out a little easier if they're dry, so we let them dry a little bit right before we plant them. So let's talk about where we're planting all those plants and what we're going to do before we plant them. If this is your first time on our channel, we welcome you here. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell button so you're notified every time we come out with a new video. If you're a frequent viewer of our channel, it's always great to have you back. So this is one of the 6 plots in our dream garden here, where we had some millet planted over the summer as a cover crop. And then on our last video we showed you we spread some of that good chicken manure peanut hull compost. We tilled it in and we've already got our rows laid off. Now what I did this time, instead of making a whole new drip tape manifold, I saved this setup here where I had my sweet corn planted in spring. So it's the same length, it's the right length because all these plots are the same size. And the cool thing is that my holes are already punched in the main line. So you can see right there, when I removed this from planting that corn, I just pulled those row starts out and I rolled this whole thing up. And then so when I laid it back down on this plot here, because I wanted 3-foot row spacing on all this stuff, I just laid it down, made me a little mark where the holes were in that main line, and then I just had to drive a straight line. So I've got 11 rows. This plot is 35 foot wide. I've got 11 rows that are 3 feet apart. We've already made our furrow there, and I'll show you how we did that. So we've got our double wheel hoe right here with the plow set in the furrowing position, so it's pushing dirt outward, and we just run along the row there and make a nice little furrow to lay our drip tape in. Well, yesterday my camera battery went dead on me right as I was finishing up laying the drip tape, so had to wait, not get it planted yesterday, but we're gonna get it planted this morning. Back out here, and we've got our plants ready, we've got our drip tape laid, we've got our water running, and I'll show you what we're about to do. So we've got 11 rows of drip tape ran on this 30 by 35 plot here. We've got our main line down here, and then our drip tape runs perpendicular to that. You can see that those drip lines there are expanded, they're full of water, and we've got those lines located every 3 feet along this plot, or this main line, and then all that is being fed by our water hose right here, which hooks into our filter, which is that black piece there, our pressure regulator here, and then feeds that main line, which in turn feeds those drip lines. Really simple setup that anybody with an in-ground garden can do. You can even do it on a raised bed garden as well. So we got the water running on those 11 rows there, and right now we're just waiting on these little water spots to appear where these emitters are. You can see them some places along the rows. They haven't showed up on every emitter yet, but you can see there's one, there's a water spot, there's one, there's another one. So these emitters are located every 12 inches along the row, and so we turn our water on, wait till those little water spots appear, and that's how we know where to put our transplants. So we'll put a transplant in each one of those spots there and space them out 1 foot apart. Now if you're direct seeding, you can certainly direct seed between those emitters and it puts out plenty of water, enough to cover those gaps. You'll still get really good germination. As far as what we're going to plant in this plot, I'm definitely going to start out with several rows of tiger collard and several rows of lacinato kale. Both of those are home run producers for me. I can plant them now and they'll still be producing on into the spring, because we'll just crop those leaves and they'll keep growing and growing and growing. So probably 3 rows of collards and 3 rows of the lacinato kale, just to give us some really good production there all throughout these fall and winter months. So if we do 3 rows of collards and 3 rows of kale, that's going to leave us 5 rows, and we're probably going to fill those with broccoli and cauliflower. So we've got some Green Magic broccoli, which is a nice heat resistant broccoli or heat tolerant broccoli, and Lord knows we need that this year. And then cauliflower, I've got some snow bowl cauliflower that I'm going to plant as well. So 3 rows of one, 2 rows of another, and that should fill up this plot. And then we need to get another plot ready, because we've still got plenty of plants to plant. Our transplants grew out really nice this fall despite all the heat. So this is our tiger collards here, and you can see, you know, almost 100% germination in that flat there. Plants look nice and healthy, they're not too leggy. Over here we've got our lacinato, or what some people call dinosaur kale. These look really good as well. Really nice germination, really healthy looking green plants. We've been feeding these guys some 20-20-20 in the greenhouse, and they're looking good. And then lastly, our Green Magic broccoli here, nice flat of that as well. It's always nice to have good transplants to start off with your fall garden. Healthy transplants makes for healthy big plants. Besides growing really nice transplants, one of my favorite things about these trays is I can just pick them up with one hand like this. I can sling them around, whatever. They're not flimsy, they're not going to flop around. I can throw them back on the ground just like that. They're fine. It's not going to hurt the tray or the transplant. They're just really tough, and it makes it easy to carry these things around the garden and drop out my plants where I need them. So the way I like to do this is I like to walk along the row with my tray and go ahead and drop a plant by every water spot, and go ahead and do that for the majority of the rows. And then I'll come back along there and get on my knees and scoot along that row and actually put these guys in the ground. That dirt is nice and soft, especially with that water being there. These things will poke in the ground really easily. But I like to just walk along there, pull them out of the tray first, and then go back and plant them. Just seems to be a little quicker doing it that way. All right. Now that makes me feel good right there. I was a little down and out because I just felt like I was behind this fall, but I couldn't do nothing about it because of the heat. But here it is, the 1st of October, and I finally got some cool weather crops in the ground, and that makes me feel really good. So we got all 11 rows planted in this 30 by 35 spot here. So 11 rows on 3-foot row spacing. Now that row spacing right now may look a little far apart for you, and you may be thinking, well, he's got a lot of wasted space in there. But once some collards and broccoli get to sprawling out, once we start shooting some juice to them, There won't be much space left between them, maybe enough for one pass or so with our single wheel hoe. So 3 foot is about as close as I want to play with these kind of crops here. Now there's our tiger collard transplants, and those things, once we shoot a little fertilizer to them and they start using some of that chicken manure, those things will start growing really fast, and we'll just crop those leaves off individually, and those stalks will get on up 3 or 4 foot tall throughout the winter and into the spring. And then over here we got our lacinato kale, or our dinosaur kale, which is my favorite kale variety. And we'll crop those leaves just like we do those tiger collards, and those stalks will get nice and tall as well. And then if we keep walking, come over here, we'll see our broccoli, our green magic broccoli, which is a heat tolerant broccoli, and should do well considering this warm fall we're going to have. And then lastly, the last 2 rows over here, we've got some really nice looking cauliflower transplants. So this is snow bowl cauliflower. It's a white cauliflower. Seems to do well in the heat for us. Really good looking transplants there. And I love fresh cauliflower. Hard to beat with just a little salt and olive oil on it. Now in the past I have planted the kale and the collards on double rows. That works just fine. You can do it that way if you're kind of cramped for space. Works really good to plant those on double rows. However, the broccoli and the cauliflower does not work very well on double rows. I've tried it in the past and it seems like there's just not enough space there. The plants will get big, but the heads never reach optimal size, I guess because there's just too much competition for space and nutrients there when you plant those broccoli and cauliflower on a double row. So we did the broccoli and the cauliflower on single rows, and for the sake of consistency we just did the kale and collards on single rows as well. And it's always nice to have extra plants left over. Inevitably, out of those several hundred plants I put in the ground, a few of them are going to die. They're just not going to make it. So we need some backups here so we can replace the ones that die. Dad will plant a lot of these in his garden, and then we'll just give away the rest or just throw them away. We always plant more than we need because seeds are relatively cheap and it's easy to grow, 162 of them at the time in those trays right there, and we'd rather have more than not have enough. We get a lot of people asking us, how do I know when I'm using drip, how do I know how long to run the water? You can see that little ring of water around, and you can feel that soil is nice and moist there. So I always tell them, just go out in your garden and look, and you can see where that ring of water will start to develop, and when that area gets saturated, you can turn your water off. Now the general rule of thumb is it takes about 2.5 hours for each of these emitters to deliver an inch of water, which is usually plenty. So with these guys right here, frequency is going to be more important. So I'll probably water them every day just for an hour or so they can get up and going really nice, get over that little bit of transplant shock and start growing. So our first cool weather planting of fall 2019 is in the books, but we've still got a long way to go. We've still got at least 2 to 3 more plots in this dream garden to plant. A lot more plants to get in the ground. I've got rutabagas, I've got kohlrabi, I've got cabbage, I've got Brussels sprouts, I've got turnips. I can't even remember what all I have in the greenhouse, but it's all getting ready to plant, and so I've got to get to work. And we'll take you along for the ride, planting these other plots here, getting some of this cabbage, Brussels sprouts, other stuff in the ground. If you have any questions about fall planting or growing transplants, or what you should transplant and what you should direct seed, let me know in the comments below. I'd also love to hear if you guys have gotten any broccoli and collards and cauliflower in the ground yet. As always, hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.